how do you organize the world? There were conflicting visions. The U.S. elites had their picture of how it ought to be organized, but it was certainly not uniform by any means. And opposing forces had to be dealt with somehow. It was American power, in fact, that established the current world order. Style and form, now they're in the framework of a certain kind of globalization in a very special form, which is crafted primarily to serve the interests of those with power, perfectly naturally. Transnational corporations, financial institutions, the state elites, and so on. The traditional conservative order had been discredited because of its association with fascism. Well, the first task of the United States and Britain after the war was to restore that traditional order in its essentials. And that was it was done all over the world in one or another form, sometimes bloodily, sometimes in other ways, mostly in ugly ways. I did write an interesting essay called Literary Censorship in England, and it was about thought control in free societies. I picked England as the example because he was there. And the point that he made is that it really wasn't all that different from the totalitarian Soviet Union. It was just done in different ways. But he said that, in fact, one of the ways he mentioned is a good education. You'll be happy to know. So if you have a good education, I presume he meant, Oxford and Cambridge and those places, you just have it instilled in you that there are certain things it just wouldn't do to say, or even to think if the system's working properly. And he also talked about private ownership of the press and other factors that, as he puts it, end up with the result that unpopular ideas are, and what he called inconvenient facts, are silenced with surprising effectiveness. Well, that's not very well known, and there's a reason for it. It was intended as the introduction to his famous Animal Farm, which made him a household word, satire on the Soviet Union. But as if to prove his point, it was silenced with surprising effectiveness. It didn't appear for unknown reasons, which his biographers don't go into, though they must know. And it was discovered about 25 years later, long after his death. The basic conflicts, of course, persist, and they persist for quite simple reasons. They're about fundamental values, about justice and freedom and human rights, and these values are constantly an arena of conflict between the more powerful, between centers of power and most of the rest. That's a good deal of history, and the last half century is no exception to that. Well, at the onset of the current era, at the end of the Second World War, there were the framers of the New World Order. They had to face these challenges everywhere. First, they had to face them at home.
Well, the Turner Prize has come and gone, and the UK city culture is packing its bags and moving out. And three guys known as the Bogside artists, which they thought they could ignore, ostracize, marginalize, not just the UK city of culture, but the Turner Prize and Whitehall and Westminster and Stormont and Washington and all the rest of it. But hey, we think they say, and we know how to go about saying it. Ignore it? I don't think so.